800 million people in the world suffer from mental health problems, but only 1/3 of them would actually seek help. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, the number of people who suffer from depression and anxiety has doubled during the pandemic. And that's why we are here today. Welcome to Hedepy Talks, our first well-being conference where we discuss with HR managers from all over the world how to actually introduce well-being strategies in your companies. I'll be joined today by 4 speakers who will be really covering a broad range of topics. I will be looking for actionable case studies. I will be looking for their personal knowledge. And I will be looking for something that you can implement just right now, today, when you can, in order to be better. Why Hedepy is organizing this? It's a startup that was created after the pandemic, after Lukáš Krčil realized that we need to do something about it, that we can't just watch people suffer in our companies. Currently, Hedepy is offering the services of 250 certified therapists who are available within reach, within hours, so you can have them when you need them. You can address them in 8 different languages, so you can definitely speak your mind when you need it. We are helping more than 13,000 people in different companies all over the world. And that is really for us the mission. That technology that empowers us to heal people, to give them a space to talk about their problems so we can become a better place. My first speaker, Bogdan, is connecting from Romania. He's the CEO of eJobs, and he will be covering what are the most crucial benefits that you can implement in your company and what the employees value the most.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you, Hedepy, for having me in this morning. We will talk today about the new age of benefits, how to shape basically employee benefit package in this new flexible work environment that we are currently living. My name is Bogdan Badea. I'm the CEO of eJobs. We are the largest job board in Romania. Let's jump into the presentation. Let's get some context from the employer side. We have 31% of the employers say that salary is the only criterion which determines candidate to switch jobs. And we have 41% of the employers which think they can attract talent through benefit packages. What candidates have to say? 21% of them would quit their jobs even without a backup plan job if dissatisfied with the current employer. This is a massive change for Romania, as in this part of the world, quitting your job without having a new job wasn't a thing before the pandemic. Now, apparently, the great resignation from the States and the Western Europe is catching us as well. 76% of Romanians think that they will find a job in less than 3 months. This means that they are very optimistic about finding a new job that fits better their needs. And 6.1% will change their job for a more attractive benefits package. It's not a huge percent, but it's a good percent when it comes to choosing a job based on the benefit package. Let's talk about benefits. We ran some studies, some surveys in order to understand which are the best benefits from the employee perspective. The most popular benefits we have right now are meal tickets, which are the most common known in Romania. Medical subscription, which again, they are very common. Personal and professional trainings. This is a thing that is perceived from the employee perspective as a benefit, not as a learning and development tool. Transportation costs is number 4, and private insurance is number 5. What is very interesting that we have 2 new entries in the last 2 years. 8 mental health services. Wasn't a thing in Romania. I think under 1% of employees were using it and paid by them before the pandemic. Now the things have changed. And also paying home bills. Of course, working from home means that some employers give the benefit of paying some house bills for the people who are working from home. 86% of the employers offer benefit packages at this point. It is a high percentage, but I should mention that the most common ones are the ones that are used by this 86%, and are referring about the first 3 benefits that you see on this slide. What came with the new pandemic? What came with everything that's happening around us? We see that a lot of feelings, a lot of anxieties, a lot of doubts from the employee perspective. Number one was I was afraid I wouldn't find a new job, which is the biggest fear that they had in the pandemic. And I was terribly scared that my whole family would get COVID. So one is job related, one is health related. And they are the top fears from the employee perspective. And the third one, I lost my emotional balance. Yes, professional and personal. Unfortunately, with the work from home, there is a very thin line that if you do not know how to break and how to stop one and start another, you will end up, unfortunately, in this situation. Are we actually, from a Romanian perspective, open to therapy? Only 1 in 3 employees who felt the need of psychological help actually went to therapy. 62% didn't go because the therapy was too expensive for them. And I'm talking about now when they're actually paying for themselves. 5% were afraid of being judged by friends. Again, this percentage is much small than I actually think that the reality is. And 18% say they don't feel comfortable talking to strangers about their problems. So this is how Romanians are perceiving therapy at this point. The not so rosy side, 40% employees think that their managers are not interested in their emotional health. Unfortunately, it's a high percentage. And only 4% out of them had their treatment paid by a company as part of the benefit package. The percentage is increasing slowly, but surely. It's a benefit that is still requested. It was a drop at the beginning of the year. I wouldn't say a drop, a pause maybe for this type of services, but unfortunately the war started and everything around this war actually led again people to uncertainty and other stuff. We will talk soon about this side as well. The new work context and its consequences. So now, as we speak, we have 60% of the companies work in the office, 10% fully remote, and 30% hybrid. This is a statistics from April 2022. So it's a very recent statistic that we ran. Will the office ever be full again? We are asking ourselves. Out of the ones that are working remote and are working hybrid at this point, 55% out of them will use the hybrid model on the medium and long term. It's a big percentage. 23.7% we are planning to return to the office. Almost 8% will continue to work 100% remote, a very good percentage. And very good insight. It's 13.2% wanted to come back to the office, but employees and candidates' feedback made them reconsider their decision. It's a very interesting thing about the power that candidates and employees do have these days. How the pandemic left us burned out. Yes, the fine line that I was talking earlier about professional and personal environment has completely disappeared in the new remote context and lead to the increased burnout. We no longer feel connected to each other as a team. Unfortunately, onboarding is very difficult. I think it's the most difficult part of the new context. It's getting new employees to feel the organizational culture and learn how the things are working into their new teams. For the, let's say, old established teams, I think the situation is okay, not perfect, but it's not that bad. But for onboarding a new employees, unfortunately, the situation is not that good. Then came the war. Yes, we are coming to this. When emotional balance, I think, was beginning to be balanced again. Yes, new situation came, the war, which is very close, unfortunately, to Romania. We are neighbors with Ukraine. I think it's the largest border that actually we have with a neighboring country. And we are trying to, let's say, to trigger our resilience, but still, it's a hard thing to do after 2 years of pandemic. So a lot of people are feeling that it cannot be over. We had 2 years of pandemic, now the war. When this uncertainty will stop? So I think this pressure that we are all feeling, it's becoming more and more felt by the employees and also by the employers. How do HR people and managers feel right now? Fortunately, the number one feeling is uncertainty. And I completely agree with it. We do not know what is happening. We thought that the pandemic is over and we'll start our new life, our new normal. But the war came, so uncertainty should be one of the top feelings that they are having. A lot of them are feeling courage, optimism, passion. So we are still in a mixed feelings kind of situation. How do their teams feel? They have good days and bad days. I think all of us have good days and bad days. And I think this is a mutual feeling that we are not having only good days. We are not having only days that we want to be together with somebody, with our team and with our family. We have also bad days depending on the news, unfortunately, and depending on the context that we are living around. Emotionally challenged, of course, it's another feeling that it's top. And on an upward trend as far as the productivity is concerned. This is, I think, it's a positive thing. And the fourth, they're keeping their optimism. Hopefully, this percentage will rise in the next month. It's a growing optimism during pessimistic times. Yes, I would say it like this. Of psychological help should be needed for the people who actually need our help in these hard times. Yes, a lot of people do want to have one-on-one more often, which is a very good thing. They want to release their feelings, release the pressure, and feeling comfortable in the workplace and feeling appreciated by their managers. What is the cost? We have the largest proportion of budget allocated to benefits between 200 and 600 RON, almost 60%, which means from 50 to 150 euros. But we have also a lot of companies that are offering benefit package over 1,000 RON, means over 200 euros, which is almost 20% out of them. The majority of them are in IT sector. Solution. Yes, there is no one size fits all. This is clearly. We should personalize the benefit package according to employees' needs, to employee structure. Why not? According to their age, according to their geolocation, according to a lot of things that we need to take into consideration when building a benefit package. And yes, one size does not fit all. And do not guess the needs. This is the second point. Ask them. Run surveys. You have several survey tools like Survey Gizmo and other tools that are not expensive. You should run a survey, ask them what they want, ask them about their feelings, ask them about what they need, they like in the company, what they don't like. It's a cheap way, it's a fast way to understand what is happening within your company. 3, feedback is king. Yes, feedback is very important, but even important is timing. Don't wait for the end of the project. Don't wait for the end of the quarter. Don't wait for the end of the year. Constant feedback both ways. I think it's very, very important for a company that runs smoothly. Number 4, yes, a coffee. One-to-one feedback is important. Do it in an informal way. Go to a local coffee shop. Drink a coffee, try to blend in, try to bond with your manager or bond with the team members and ask them how they are feeling, what is troubling them, what is making them optimistic and so on. It's very important at this point. And number 5, it's okay to have feelings at work. Yes, sometimes we are neglecting the feelings at work. And sometimes if you see people that are agitated or people that are nervous, we are trying to calm them down, calm down, everything will be all right. Let them leave their feelings, and based on that feelings, you can build upon without any problem. And last, but definitely not least, we should normalize therapy. For the ones who actually need it, we should encourage them. We should have like a ambassador inside the company in order to promote this type of services, and we can see clearly that is helping. For us in eJobs, we have it the services, we have it for 1.5, almost 2 years now. It's used almost by 20 to 30% out of us at this point. Higher in the peak period, so it's a higher usage. For example, from the end of February, after the war started, of course, but we are considering normal. We are encouraging people to go. It's free of charge. It's unlimited, so they can go and they can have this type of services without any problem. And we all should know that vacation should be pushed inside the company. People who do not go on vacation, the kings of untaken vacation, should be the ones that you should encourage in order to go on vacation, because you cannot depressurize people. You cannot make them feel more relaxed, keeping them in their office or working from home. They should take a break, 2 weeks at least, in the same vacation, in order to relax and come back. Basically, come back to you with a fresh look and with fresh power in order to boost their emotional balance and boost their productivities as well. Thank you very much for having me this morning, and hopefully we will catch up in the next meetings of Hedepy. And all the best, and thank you very much, and good luck with the conference onward. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for this inspirational message. I totally agree with you, and I can't, really sign this more. Thanks a lot for connecting with us. I'll be definitely catching up with you later. But for now, I'll be moving to our another speaker. I'm super excited to have her on stage because she's a dear friend. She's super inspiring. When I grow up, I want to be like her because her energy is infectious. And she's really, when she's talking about well-being, you really know she means it because she lives it. So I'm super excited to hear her talk. Please welcome Petra Hrušková. Petra, welcome here.
Hi, Pavlina, and thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really exciting. How are you today?
Oh, I'm wonderful. There is sunshine out there, and that does a lot. And generally speaking, I've been very well. Thank you for asking.
I'm really looking forward to your presentation.
Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to talk about how companies should approach well-being for their employees, and how maybe those professionals who are in charge of making sure that the employees are well, how they should approach their leadership to get their support and, of course, resources to put their well-being programs in place. And let me start with a few memes, because one thing that really helps you understand the mood and the vibe in your company is observing the memes that your employees are sharing amongst each other or using the platforms that you may have available. And I think when memes like those that I'm putting up right now appear, then there's a time to start getting really alarmed and worried, because there is something fundamentally wrong with the well-being of your employees who cannot relate with these, right? And this brings me to the big question, why should companies in the first place worry about their employee well-being. Trying to work the clicker here. Bear with me. The why. So why should we even worry? Well-being programs in companies are not so new, but newish. In the past, we were talking about work-life balance, and what's private doesn't belong to work. Well, this is over. We have been living in what's called VUCA world. VUCA is a term originally used by the American Army after the end of the polarity between the US and Soviet Union. Until then, the world was very clearly defined. After Soviet Union ended, all of a sudden, things started being very hard to navigate. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And then at some point, business picked up the term because it tells us a lot about the world we're living in. You know, you don't know what to expect. Planning 1 year ahead no longer is applicable. You know what happens tomorrow, next week. So we have been living in the VUCA world. And sometimes, because our brain was not designed to deal with the constant stress and uncertainty, sometimes it can lead to a complete burnout. I have to say the word burnout these days is the buzzword in companies. This is what companies have been trying to address, burnout. Now, let's talk about what that really means. Burnout is the state of mind where you are feeling completely out of resources. You have difficulties to find any energy to perform your job. You are feeling exhausted. You are increasing the distance between yourself and your job. You have difficulties to identify yourself with your job. And you are constantly feeling negative and perceiving everything around you in a negative manner. And also reduced professional efficacy is one of the typical traits of burnout. Now, what kind of risks burnout means for organizations, and why is everyone so alerted to address burnout? I think if one thing people should carry away from our discussion today is burnout hurts your productivity as an organization. It undermines your productivity. That is proven, that's no speculation. And that's why companies are so invested in addressing burnout, or ideally preventing burnout. Gallup conducted a survey in 2019, and the results I'm going to present are from this survey, but just when we realize what's happened between 2019 and today, we can probably add some percentage to these numbers, because COVID and working from home, unfortunately, made the problem even deeper. So 63% of people who are feeling a burnout are likely to take a sick day. 13% of them are less confident in their performance. Of course, lack of confidence very much impacts your performance. And many of them are also likely to be seeking a different job because they're looking for answers of what's wrong with me, and sometimes they think that the reason why they're not feeling well is the job. And it may not be that way, but unfortunately this is how it's often perceived. No, the clicker and I were not best friends here, but it's coming. So another thing that burnout is threatening is employees' desire to learn and grow. They are almost in a survival mode. They're just trying to make it through the day. Where do you find the capacity to learn and be creative and apply innovative thinking when you are completely out of energy? So the focus is on daily survival and not developing for the future. those who are suffering from burnout also have less desire to discuss their performance with their managers and to actively look for ways to improve their performance and just do a better job, be more innovative, making decisions. So as you can see, there's basically everything in your job, in your employees' performance, can be impacted by burnout. So to summarize, if you have employees suffering from burnout, and I guarantee you do have at least some of those, it is your productivity, innovation, image as employer, attrition, meaning the number of employees leaving the company, your competitiveness, because your biggest competitive advantage are your employees. That's all threatened. And all of this combined costs you a lot. So that's the why. That's why everybody's thinking about, okay, what do we do today? So how? How do we address burnout? And what I intend to do here is to share my experience in how to best talk to your leadership in the company about the solutions and benefits that you would like to bring on board as an HR professional or someone in charge of the well-being of your employees. How do you position this to your leadership to get the support and to get the resources? Because of course resources will be needed. So what would be the recommended strategies for successful well-being programs implementation? And the reason why I'm talking about implementation is once you have convinced your leadership to invest, you also need to show that the investment is bringing some results, that it's not a waste of resources. So number one, get executive sponsors. Business, people in companies conducting business will always listen more to their own leadership, to the business leadership, the company leadership, than to an HR professional. That's given, and I don't think there's any point in trying to beat that. It's also about capacity. People are overloaded with communication. So if they have to make a choice, they would rather read an email or communication coming from their leader rather than the HR team. So get executive sponsors, get them on board by speaking their language, addressing all of the issues that I mentioned previously, productivity, innovation. Get them on board and ask them to become advocates and sponsors for your well-being programs. Make sure that on their agenda, in their narrative, whenever they come up and talk to the employees, they mention well-being and they mention the benefits and solutions you have in place for well-being. Have them show vulnerability, which is a very much appreciated and respected leadership trait, being vulnerable and sharing their own story, how they benefited from these well-being solutions, is a great tool to bring employees on board. Make sure that well-being and the solutions you have for well-being are part of the company values, are well-being to be integrated in all of the messaging related to the company culture. And of course, make sure it's relevant to your specific business. So for example, I actually used an example in my slide that is relevant to a company that is a call center, where they crafted their message of company culture and they integrated well-being into it, because that's how you build your employer branding as an employer who cares for their employees. Make managers responsible. Managers are the ones, and that's an old, very well-known fact, People are leaving companies because of managers. People are staying with companies because of managers. Managers can amplify the good and the bad as well. So if you already have well-being solutions in place, make sure that managers are the biggest promoters of those, and make sure that managers hold responsibility for their own team's well-being or their own team's shape. Unless you have managers on board, you have very little chance to succeed. That means you need to empower them, you need to enable them, to give them the information, teach them how to spot a potential burnout in an employee. And I would mention psychological safety and power of vulnerability here. I would just encourage anyone who's listening to us to look out these terms, because they play a huge role in employee well-being. Make sure the managers act as role models. Whatever you have in place in the company, if managers don't act in line with these principles, it's all going to wane. So managers should never send emails outside of working hours. God forbid, communicate during their vacation or on weekends. That's the basics. Make sure that you communicate about the well-being benefits and resources. In my experience, the biggest issue is that you have great solutions in place, great tools in place, and there is a fraction of your employee population that are actually using them because they don't know. And that's the basics you need to get right. Well-being content needs to be present in all of your company communication. That's the only way to really make sure that it lands well. As I already said earlier, people will always prioritize, because that's how we have been conditioned to focus on productivity, focus on result. So if I have to make a choice between one email that I read and another one that I skip, I will always focus on the one focused on my business. Make sure that that includes the well-being messaging and information. That's the way to get it to people. Having easy access to these resources is also critical. And one thing that I would encourage all companies to ensure is talk about your well-being benefits and solutions by the time you are onboarding new people. Because that's when they are most receptive of any information, not later. And of course, you will need to monitor the result. You will need to make sure that it's working. So regular employee surveys or listening tours are recommended, and regularity is key here. You need to be able to compare the outcome. And of course, it's good to craft, to design your listening strategy in a way that allows you to actually get feedback from the employees on what works for them and what doesn't and why, and be able to adapt your strategy to this outcome. Now, this is one that talks about a trap. Thinking that if you provide free yoga lessons to your employees and that's going to fix everything, that's very naive and very dangerous, and it may actually create a vibe of cynicism across your employees. And here's why. Well-being must be a shared responsibility. The company needs to design for employee well-being. If you're trying to save money and stretch everybody's capacity long-term, if you don't have enough of human resources to deliver on the job, if people are forced to work long hours and don't get time off, any well-being benefits will be completely useless. So the way the work and company culture is designed must be in line with the well-being strategy. What I would always warn from is, for the HR teams especially, don't fall into the trap of doing your job bringing well-being benefits, bringing all the great solutions in place, but not holding the management accountable for always making sure that the work conditions are satisfying for the employees and are not leading to their burnout. One without another is not going to work, so don't fall that trap. And the reason why I'm mentioning this as the last slide is this is something that happens often, and I would like everyone to carry this away. Make leadership accountable. And that's all from me.
That was amazing. Thank you. I have so many notes and so many questions.
Shoot.
First one, you talked about how burnout really affects the employees, and that really struck a chord with me. But the question is, how do I find out my people are burned out? You know, how do you do you send a questionnaire around, or do you monitor the memes, or what's how do you find out?
This brings me back to what I said about enabling managers. And this is a very, very broad area. Managers, to start with, should be great listeners. They need to be able to have a very, very high quality conversation with their team members. They shouldn't. Their conversations shouldn't only be about the results, about the targets. They always need to make sure. So start with teaching your managers on how to conduct a proper one-to-one, how to have crucial conversations with their reports. The manager is the best positioned one to spot the danger of an employee burnout. Then, of course, if this doesn't work, then there are employee relations and HR teams. And again, these should be able to spot when the issue already passed the moment where the person is able to help themselves, when a few days off are enough to recover. And then ideally, the company should have a solution in place that is offering specialized services. I would never advise, whether it is a manager or HR representative, to try and become a therapist. Mm-hmm. But I would definitely, the moment they spot the signs of burnout, immediately engage a therapist and ideally have that available at all times. And I'm not just saying it because we're here under sponsorship of Hedepy. It's actually something that companies have been doing, and having this one number you can call when you're feeling that you're really losing it as an employee, that can be a total game changer.
I think, like you mentioned it, that the employees are almost 3 times more likely to leave your company if they're suffering for a burnout. And, you know, with the current job market, it's so difficult to find people. So, you know, investing into keeping people healthy is basically, you know, saving a lot of money.
Losing a trained employee is so costly, especially today when you are not likely to find a high-quality replacement in a short time. So you really want to retain those employees. And I will go back to psychological safety. If the employee feels that they don't have anyone around to reach out to with their trouble, that's when they are likely to leave you as an employer.
Mm-hmm. That leads me to another thing you mentioned, and that was about the managers being vulnerable. In so many companies I've worked in, the managers felt like they really have to kind of be strong and perform, and that's how you become a leader. And suddenly you are asking me to share my own mental health issues and, you know, to talk about my feelings and emotions. How do you make people, you know, how do you persuade managers to suddenly strip off the...
This is so spot on, and it's funny because this feeling that I can never show my vulnerable side is typical for middle management. The more experienced, mature, and senior leader you're interacting with, the more vulnerable person willing to show their vulnerability you're talking to. And this is again about role models. If the company leader, if the senior leadership, if they show their vulnerability, they will inspire their reports, who may be the middle management, to follow their lead. And be inspired and do the same. This is about maturity, and everyone needs to get there. It shouldn't be really forced, because your employees will be sensitive to anything that's fake. But I would recommend managers to experiment with vulnerability, to make a very wise decision about what they want to share, what they feel safe to share, but just share.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, for example, when introducing therapy to your company benefits, it's important that the managers also, say, I also go there. Yeah. It's not only for you. It's not, they also go to the yoga lessons.
Yeah, exactly. And this is very region sensitive, of course. There are regions in the US speaking about having a therapist, going to therapy. It's actually quite normal. My manager does, and she's in the US. In Central Eastern Europe, it's less common, and that's why it's even more important to normalize seeking help from a specialist. It shows it's important to position this as a sign of maturity, a sign of confidence. Yes, I have a therapist, and I'm proud of it, because that means that I'm taking care of myself. This should be the positioning.
One of the questions from the audience is about preventive therapy. And I think it really brings us to this topic, because for me, I go to therapy for last 6-7 years. And for me, it's the same as going to the gym. I don't want my back to hurt, so I go to the gym. And the same, I go to the therapy. It's not about because I'm suffering from a burnout. It's because I don't want to suffer from a burnout.
Yeah.
And I think, how do you introduce this to the company, that it's part of prevention, not something that, we are clearing?
Yeah. Well, communication and positioning are key here. Talking about therapy or therapist benefits as part of the standard healthcare solutions for employees helps, rather than something extraordinary. Just part of your standard healthcare. You go for a regular check of your physiology, then that should include your mind too. And again, communicating about how easy, accessible that is will inspire people to just give it a try. Generally, communication is key here. I would always focus on repeating, this is completely confidential, this is completely safe. The company will not know that you've reached out. But remember, the number is here. And then educating the workforce on the signs, early signs of potential burnout helps. So they can relate and identify on their own that they may be reaching the point where they will not be able to help themselves, and then seek out help sooner rather than later.
I love what you were saying, because for me, I come from a marketing background, and obviously running a communication campaign is something that truly resonates with me, and really targeting the right people with the right messaging, not really keeping it a secret and making it accessible for everyone is easy.
You can't overinvest here, because you as a marketing professional, you know better than I do, what is the percentage of employees that one piece of communication is actually able to reach? It's going to be very low. Yes. I have experienced companies where benefits team were doing an amazing job in terms of bringing the right benefits on board, and very poor job in communicating the existence of the benefits. Sending one email saying, hooray, we have a new benefit for you and here it is, and then keeping silent from that day on means that you will have very, very low adoption of that benefit. And of course, low adoption of the benefit will lead leadership to naturally canceling that expense. So there is many good reasons to overinvest in communication of those benefits and accessibility. Streamline, make it very simple for employees to find that piece of information.
Yeah, so often it's like hidden in the internet behind 3 passwords, and
Click
if you haven't
5 times and maybe it will appear.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're looking for, you will not find it.
Exactly.
So make the communication or the resources very intuitive. That's another advice.
Last question, because you were talking about that you can't do yoga if you ask people to stay at weekends, that it's kind of contradictory almost. What if I work in a startup? I mean, like, startups are hustle culture, you work 24/7 and you really have to push it.
So when you are the employee, you've chosen to work in a startup and you sort of sign up for certain culture. And now this is not science that I'm saying, I'm talking about, this is more my experience and what I've observed. Startups typically exhaust people. They have a very clear target and they're after the target. If there is little or no care for employee welfare, employee well-being, it doesn't show strong leadership in startups. That's the message for startup leadership. The message for employees of startups is just be vocal about your needs. You are there for a reason. You are capable of doing an amazing job. And you will deliver better if you are looked after, if you have time and resources to look after yourself. That's common sense, nothing else. So the advice for employees would be vocal and demand the space you need for yourself. For the employers, aka startup leaders, be wise. And you already brought someone on board. That's already an investment. Don't just, it's like buying a fantastic pair of leather shoes and then not look after the leather shoes. And then you have to throw them away 6 months later.
I think like somebody's asking about the best practice for one-on-one. And so often I work with startups and they skip the one-on-ones. And I think it's like so stupid, skipping something that would maybe take 15, 20 minutes and would really change the world instead of like...
As a manager, I always consider one-to-ones my number one priority above anything else. I prefer to delegate work, as in delivering on the job, having people do that, and me looking after them and their well-being. Number one priority. I always have weekly one-to-ones with my team, and big part of that conversation is about how they feel, what they consider to be their biggest obstacles, what is taking energy from them, and also learning about what is giving energy for them. And then these learnings, and by the way, what I'm talking about is going to shift in time. So doing it once with your team member, that's not enough because people change and they sometimes change really fast and their preferences change. So you really need to do this regularly and then apply what you learn to also how, for example, you delegate work. When I managed recently an operations team. Anyone who's been in operations knows that that can be really exhausting because big chunk of your work is boring. It's not something that you draw a lot of energy from. And based on the learnings from one-to-ones, I always try to have a healthy mix for everyone. So the portion of what they were doing was what was giving them energy, because there would always be something that would be taking energy from them. So I'm saying this to demonstrate how important it is to actually talk and listen to your team member. For learning about results, you just have a reporting tool in place. You don't have to have a conversation about that.
I think it's like somebody was commenting on that in Slido, it's so important to be individual, not just do the quantitative research, but really focus on that. And I remember I did a study on innovation in companies, and we found out that the direct correlation between how often they had one-on-ones and between how innovative the company was. And the minimum was once in 2 weeks to have one-on-ones. So I love that you're saying to have it weekly. Another question that arrived. I promise we will be fast, but we are not. Obviously, thanks a lot for your questions. But What about giving people breaks? Somebody's asking, would you recommend giving people breaks?
So you mentioned earlier that someone says that you need to treat people as individuals. That's exactly where I would apply that. Bigger companies, I would recommend to have there needs to be official policy in place in terms of free time, clearly, also for legal reasons. And then you can have something like manager's discretion. You can give managers a little bit more space to decide on whether they think that this employee would deserve some time off. And just go and do it. As a manager, bet on your common sense and your intuition. And when you're dealing with this employee, and you know that the last 2 weeks they worked on a project super hard, and and good people have a tendency to invest more than they should. So it's interesting that still some companies have a tendency to act like police, making sure that nobody skips their responsibilities. In today's world, where the results of your work are the best proof of good work, you don't need to look at the hours spent in the office. That's so old, so ancient. The better approach is to balance out and to compensate. So yes, for example, my team was working globally, which meant sometimes working in the evening because of the US time zones. Then I would ask them for the next day or next 2 days to start working after lunch, to compensate for the evenings that they've spent working. And any manager can do that. Of course, if we're talking about manufacturing, where you simply have to have the people present in the production process, that's a very different story. But if we're talking about corporations, office jobs, there is so much flexibility today. So it also builds trust between you as a manager and your team members when they see that you really care for them and that you are able to observe that they feel exhausted. Especially more junior team members will be afraid of asking. They will not tell you. They are the most vulnerable ones. And in a way, you need to act as someone who is responsible for their own well-being, because they are only learning to look after themselves. So you do that. Be their mentor. Managers should be a natural mentor to their team members and say, you know what, you look a bit tired. I know you've worked hard. Why don't you just take this Friday off, and no need to log it in the system and take your vacation day away. Mm-hmm. This is very healthy.
I also think that's the part of managers leading by example. You know, if you're a manager who never takes the day off,
so spot on,
or compensate yourself, the employees will not trust you that you mean it when you say it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same with vacations. Never, ever I bring my laptop to vacation. I prefer to gain some points as manager by telling my team, okay, this is the person who's covering for me on this team. If you have any questions, reach out to this person and figure it out, because I trust you with your experience and opinion on resolving the situation. And if you resolve it differently than I would, don't worry, I'm not going to judge you when I come back, because I know you will do your best in the moment. And stick to this rigorously. That's the way how you teach, how you lead by example.
Last question about the breaks and the sabbaticals. Would you recommend that to companies?
I think they're very healthy. Of course, one thing that is a bit problematic is that sabbatical always means no income for that individual. So there only will be a certain group of employees who will be able to afford going on sabbatical. So if the company is economically in a position that they can afford it, I would strongly recommend paid sabbatical. Maybe shorter, maybe not 1 year, obviously, but if you really care about the employee to to seriously recharging and coming back full of ideas and full of energy, make it available to them, because someone who has been working for a shorter period of time, they are not likely to be able to afford being out of income for 3 months or longer. But generally, my experience is that what people value most is time. And if I'm offered some kind of food stravenky, I'm sorry.
Food vouchers.
Food vouchers, thank you. Or any benefit similar to that, generally financial benefit, versus freedom and ability to take time off and do something fun and something that helps me feel fulfilled in life, I would always go after the free time. And knowing this, I would always use this as a tool as a manager.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot. I think the meal vouchers were a great introduction to what's coming from Lukáš Krčil, the founder of Hedepy. He will be sharing the insights he got from research among HRs who introduced therapy as a benefit for their employees. And I'm really looking forward to this. Lukáš, how are you doing today? And I mean it not in an American way, but in a very Czech way, that question.
Actually, when I heard Petra's presentation, I feel a little bit afraid because it was so super and inspired. So I think I feel afraid, but I'm really happy that we can talk about this important topic as well.
I'm so happy that you're actually doing Hedepy Talks and the work you've been doing. I said it at the beginning, like 250 certified therapists available within hours and in 8 languages. That's such a great accomplishment you have made.
Yeah, and we done it because of our team and because people really feel that they need help. So I think we are on the wave of something which is happening in society nowadays.
You think pandemic has really accelerated that, right?
I think that's true, and it helps educate the society about well-being and especially about mental health care.
Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to your presentation because I know you shared with me that 15% of your clients are actually company clients.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about the research you have done.
Okay, so can I do?
Let's do it.
Okay, thank you very much. I will maybe start with a controversial question. Have we gone mad? Are we crazy that we have to pay for psychotherapy for our employees? Because this is the question what many HRs ask us and what asked I myself 2 years ago when COVID came. Back in the time I was CEO of a marketing agency and our business simply stopped there and we didn't have much resources. So I had to fire almost 40% of our people. So it was really sad. And it was through video like this, and it was emotionally horrible, not only for me, but for the whole culture. And then I need to support everybody, and I try to find a solution. So I can really understand the feeling when you need to support somebody in your internal team. And that's how we co-found Hedepy, actually. I will play with this clicker as Petra as well.
I think that clicker is like revenge.
Yeah,
on us.
that's the yeah. And nowadays, as Petra said, and you actually said it as well, 59% of the whole population has affected mental health somehow because of COVID, and sadly because of Ukrainian crisis. We feel fear, burnout, and something inside us is not right. So this is something which usually can be true for almost half of your team in your company. So you have to be careful about this. In Hedepy, the clicker. Oh yeah. In Hedepy, we try to make psychotherapy accessible and anonymous. I think that's pretty important. Petra said it as well. as you said, we have 250 certificate therapists, is because people would like to choose the right fit from themselves, because everybody is individual. And the really important part of Hedepy is that you can do it as soon as possible. Simply in hours, you can have a help. During last 2 years, we have a session with hundreds of HRs, because nowadays we have 13,000 employees on Hedepy who can use it every day, and the HRs start to ask many different questions. They were curious because it's not like in US where this is really common benefit. It's something new in Central, Eastern, and maybe in the whole Europe. It's something a little bit new. So they ask simple questions like, do people really want that? To talk about something, isn't it a little bit strange? Or what if will everybody use it? What we are going to do with our resources, with our budget? Isn't it crazy that everybody now can go for psychotherapy in our company? Or isn't it crazy that we will do it? What other people from other companies will think about us? So this is many questions which we receive every day. And I think it's a good time now, after 2 years of pandemic, to show you real data. Because we ask the companies and the employees for feedback, how they really perceive psychotherapy in their company. Of course, this is not like a huge study where we ask hundreds or thousands of people. So I think it's a good indication and we should take it like this. So we ask 100 employees from 13,000 and we ask 20 HRs, our leaders, because this is important as well. And we done it 1 week ago. So I think it's pretty fresh and let's jump to do that. But first of all, I would like to play a small game with you guys who are watching us. I would like to ask you which benefit most convinces you that your company really cares about you. Because this is something which I asked as well the employees, and I would like to compare your your answers with the employees' answers and see if there is a difference or if you really understand where we are now. So you can use Slido and you can vote if you want, guys. So let's jump to the research. First of all, I ask why HRs decided to implement psychotherapy in their companies. And I think it's not big surprise that most of them would like to support their employees in these times. That's completely understandable. Some of the HRs really think that this is a fundamental part of their benefit systems and they should have it before, but simply the management didn't have a right attitude to help them. But what was really surprising for me here is that not many people, actually, their employees, like raise their hands and say, you know, I would like to have psychotherapy as a benefit. You can see in the research that it was really a few of them. So you can't expect that the people will come and say, hey, Pavlina, can I have a psychotherapy as a benefit? You simply can't expect it. So it doesn't mean that if people don't ask you for this, they don't want it. I think that's the first important learning. The second one is I asked them how challenging was it for them to implement it to the company, because I really saw that many HRs have doubts about it, if the management and the colleagues will perceive this benefit as a positive thing. And as you can see, according to our study, for many of them it was pretty simple actually. And it was surprising for me because I speak with them every day and they say, you know, it's a little bit hard. But if they compare it with other benefits, for them the implementation of psychotherapy, it was a standard process, something really, really okay. The next question was usability. This is actually the most common question which we receive from HR. How many people will really use the psychotherapy? How much we are going to pay for this? And for me, we use our statistics. So this is not only from 100 employees, this is from 13,000 people who can use Hedepy every day. And the usability is around 6%. It's not much, right? I was surprised, and I think if you look to statistics, we have companies who have 40%, and we have companies who have 2%. So it's something between, and it's really interesting to speak today about why this number? Because if you look to statistics, 59% of people have some mental issue today. They have some problem. And only 5.5% in the companies, if somebody pay for it, use it. So this is interesting. Averagely, they have 3.5 session per one employee. So that's actually really good time when some psychotherapists help somebody. They usually do four sessions. So I was curious and I asked more how the HR met the expectation, how they think that the benefit was successful in their companies. And we got many responses, so I try to summarize it for you. They usually say that they are really satisfied if they implement it, but maybe they expected more involvement from the employees. But if somebody came to the psychotherapy, it really helped them. So that was the summary, and it's interesting. It leads me to the thing which Petra mentioned. It's really about the communication, because if you start the benefit and you just promote it once, or if you don't show that you go to the psychotherapy as well, maybe the employees will not participate there. So it's interesting, but I would like to focus more today about employees and not HRs. So let's jump to their answers. I asked them how they see the implementation of psychotherapy as a benefit to their company. What do they think about that? And this was something shocking for me, because only 5.5% people use it, but 80% of them think that it's really positive that they have it in the company. So it's a really good sign that people don't raise their hands, but they really think that it's great that somebody can listen to them, and if they have a problem, they can use a help. The second question is why they don't use it if they have it. Why they don't go to psychotherapy if they have a chance and somebody pay for their session. And this was surprising for me as well. Of course, around 45% of the people simply think that they don't need it. It's really common and it's understandable because of our culture as well. Because well-being and mental health, it's not really like a huge topic in our society. It wasn't, now it is, but we need to educate us a little bit more. But here is the thing, 47% of the people, 47%, sorry, do not have time or think that they do not have time for this. So it leads me again to your previous discussion that maybe we have to give them time, go to psychotherapy. Maybe we have to tell them that it's okay if they do it that during their working hours, you know, and not at the weekend or at the evening, that they can have a time for it. And then we go on with another question. I really ask which benefits most convince you that your company cares about you. And I will go back to your answers, guys, to your HR answers. I see that from your perspective, it's psychotherapy, multi-sport card, some employee stocks, and points in cafeteria. I think we have a little bit different answers than the employees has. So I will start from the end of the answers. This is the chart which we had. On the last line is points in cafeteria and doctor on the phone. I think it shows that points in cafeteria is a standard. I think everybody expects that you will have it. It's not something where you show that you really cares about your employees. So that's a standard, and I really meet HRs who say, you know, we have points in cafeteria and that's it, because that's our beneficial system. But it shows that people want more today, especially in this crisis environment. So the next steps was multi-sport card and employee stocks, of course. But if you go to the top, people still like in our society, in Central Europe, Eastern Europe, food vouchers. It's surprising, but I understand that it's something necessary. But I was surprised that if you go to the top, they really think that psychotherapy can help them. That's something which you show today that you really care. It's something innovative. They perceive it as something new benefit system. And then we start to ask if our service, our product, how we really designed Hedepy is useful for the employees, if they don't want to make it a little bit differently. So we ask what is the most important for you in the psychotherapy service? What really they want if you talk about well-being and psychotherapy? Of course, this most important is to have the session as soon as possible. Because if somebody is burned out or has depression, they don't want to wait 2 months or even weeks. They would like to have it in 5 minutes. So this is what we are going to implement it, because I think this is the most important thing. The second is anonymity. People don't want to share that they go there. People don't want to, raise their hands. But I think it's a little bit changing, and they will talk more about it. But most of your employees don't want to share it with you. So you have to remember this. The third thing is large number of qualified and certificated therapists, because people need a right fit. People would like to find their individual therapist who is suitable to them. The next thing is really like a video profile and the reviews, because in psychotherapy you would like to find a therapist and understand who is it before you jump to the session. You would like to feel how the person reacts and what's their experience. What was surprising for me as a leader of Hedepy here is that webinars, exercise and video content which create resilience in the society or in your company is at the end of this. It a little bit shows that maybe people need more focus on their problems than focus on everyday education or something like that. And I think we should discuss why is this like this. And the last question, I'm almost finishing my keynote, is this. And I think this is the most important part of this presentation. Because if the guys go for psychotherapy, if they have a problem, 90%, actually 91% of them say that they feel better after the session. So I think this is really good example that psychotherapy and well-being is helpful for the people, even they don't talk about that much in front of their leaders or HRs. To make a summary, to sum it up, please do not take this as a huge research which suits to every company. I think if you really would like to implement psychotherapy or well-being into the company, you should think about these indications. First of all, implementation is easy. You can do it, and because of nowadays crisis and everything around us, the people inside of your company will probably support you because they think that is possible. 80% of your employees will probably think that it's a positive thing if you will implement it. So it's really good for the leaders. They usually place this benefit above food vouchers and above the multi-sport cards and especially cafeteria points, because these benefits are standards on the market today. They will not use it in like a huge scale that everybody will go there. Usually it's now 5%, and you should promote it more in your company if you would like to increase this number, if you would like to help more people. And if they need it, they need to have it anonymous. They need to have it without telling somebody that they use it. But 90% of them could use it in a positive way, and it could help them. So that's everything from me, and that was the end of the research.
Thank you, Lukáš. It was amazing. And what I truly loved was that for many people, just implementing therapy as a benefit is a sign of empathy. Maybe I will not use it, but it's a great sign that my company truly cares about me.
I think it's an important sign of employer branding nowadays, that you really goes to the company which cares, That's important.
I think it's, because so often, and you said it, like at some point, some benefits are considered standard in companies, like points in cafeteria or the meal vouchers. We keep coming back to them, or the fact that you can maybe choose your own operational system, like if you use MacBook or Microsoft. But this is something like that's an extra. That's kind of the bonus.
It sounds like that, and I'm surprised from it because 2 years I'm listening that it's not like this from HR perspective, but from employees perspective it's like that. It's like this. But you have to give them time to use it. That's, I think, that's the most fundamental part of the research. They don't have time to use it, and they don't think that they can decide because they have to work.
Yeah, that's something that really resonated with me with the talk with Petra, like that we really have to give them the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Also, part of your research was talking to the HR managers. Obviously, you talked to a lot of HR managers. Yeah. I saw the companies there. There was Food Shop, CNC, Denso, so many companies, so exciting. What are the usual communication strategies when it comes to introducing this to the company? Because we talked about this with Petra, and it was like, yes, 50% of work is introducing that, but really running that campaign among the employees is another very crucial part of it.
I think this is a really important question, and we should talk about this. We usually start with a letter or mail from CEO or from leaders of the company. They introduce this benefit to their employees and say why they decided to do that. But this is really important because they see that the employees see that it's okay to visit a psychotherapist. The second part is education. As I said, not many people in our region understand what means mental health or mental health care. I haven't understand as well 2 years ago, so I can imagine that. So we have to start to educate how to understand my body and my feeling. And we do it as a webinar with real psychotherapists for each company. It's really interesting because almost 70% or 80% company participate in this event. So it's a lot, actually, if you compare it how many people go there after that. So big part of Hedepy is actually education and creating resilience against crisis and against stress, burnout, and these other stuff.
How long it usually takes for the company to implement your solution? Somebody's asking in Slido, and you're saying like, we talk to the HR manager, they're running a campaign, the CEO is sending out an email, we run a webinar.
I think when the HR decides to do this step, we have to start to count the time when she persuades her or his colleague inside the company. I think that this is the biggest part of the timing. But when they decide to go with us, we are ready to start in 2 weeks.
That's really good because you talk about how important the speed is, and obviously this is something.
It's important to speed, especially if you have seasonal business. When people feel actually after the Christmas, when you have e-commerce and so on, they feel burnout. They really like January, February, leave the company. So we have to do it really fast if the company needs that they have many people who feel anxious, fear, stress, and so on.
Maybe like, we as marketers, we suffer from Christmas during summer. I think you remember that.
True. I remember that very good.
And I always like start singing the Christmas carols and so on. Like
to have a mood.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like high time to actually think about like psychotherapy for your employees and the wellbeing strategy just right now, so you are in time for the season.
I think you are completely right, but every business have different seasonality. So for some of the business, like, I don't know, travel agencies and so on, is the season now. So actually, always is a good time to start about implementation.
One question I really had, it was how important it is to be anonymous. Because obviously, like, this is health.
Crucial.
I don't want to share my secrets. And I, for example, talked to some of my friends if they're using therapy as a benefit in the company. And they were quite worried that the HR is basically in touch with the therapist and the therapist is basically reporting on them. how does it work? How do you make it secure?
I think this is a most important part of the whole process, that nobody from the company, even us in Hedepy, don't have this secret. Only the psychotherapist and the employee. And we do it really simply. As Petra said, it has to be simple. We give them voucher. And the voucher is like six-digit code, is used for CEO, for middle management, and for the whole company. They have same digit. And they just give it to Hedepy during the payment method, and they just put it there, and they have it for free. And that's it. That's it. No more magic. It's simple like this.
So you're not sending any reports or any kind of like 20% of your employees have reported increased?
We send to the HR how many people visited the psychotherapist and how many sessions do they have averagely. That's the number, actually, what I showed you a few minutes ago, and that's it. If somebody gives a negative or positive feedback to us, we send it anonymously to them, that somebody say it's a good or it's a bad, to give HR understanding if they like it or not. But that's it. It's like two things.
Somebody's asking in Slido, what about the group sessions? Do you think they are beneficial for...
I think so, because people feel that they are in the same problem and they are open to talk about, and they can support each other. But for us, it was the beginning to start with individual session, and maybe we will go on with that. The group session has a problem that everybody has to have a time for it. It has to be regular. So you have to do it really like with a group people regularly. So I think we will go there because many HRs asks for this benefit, but we don't have it now.
I worked in a company where we had it, and it was truly really good. We had it offline, but I think aligning the teams is not often to be done at team building, but can be done through a therapy, a shared one.
And, try to imagine cross-company groups where you have people on same position with similar problems, several challenges, and they can speak in a group session. This is where we are heading. That you can connect different companies, different people with similar problems and support them each other.
And last question that has arrived from Slido, do people, and I don't know if you can say it because you said it's very, very anonymous, but do actually people talk about work-related topics or personal-related topics, or you think it's the same?
I don't know, and I think it's not important actually, because you need people who feel good, and if they have a trouble at work or at home, it doesn't matter because their mind and their world is connected. So I don't know. I know what people search in Hedepy, and I can understand that burnout and stress is number 2 and number 3 in our statistics.
So what's number 1?
Relationships, of course.
Okay, yeah, of course. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for talking to me.
Thank you.
Lukáš will be joined by Petra in a few seconds, and we will be covering more topics when it comes to introducing well-being strategies into your companies. I will be asking them about how to build resilience long time. I will be asking them about, for example, how Gen Z is changing, how we to see the debate on mental health in companies, and what are the actual strategies that they would recommend implementing. Please feel free to share your questions, and also some of you were asking if there are going to be recordings and if the speakers are going to share their presentations, and the answer is yes. So yes, definitely, if you had some problems with I don't know, your connection in the beginning, or for example, if you have to go for lunch or for that really important meeting, you can play that later and definitely, go through that. But I will be super excited if you stayed with us, send us more questions, and really join us in this debate. So it's not only 3 of us, but it's like 300 of us. Looking forward to see you in 30 seconds. Petra and Lukáš joined me for the panel discussion today. Please feel free to send us the questions, but I have to start by asking, is there something that has changed with new generations coming to the workplace? Is the talk about mental health different nowadays? And I will start with you, Petra.
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, of course. It already started with the famous millennials, even though they are not the youngest generation any longer. And I think the main difference is that these are generations of people who are not afraid of asking for what they think they deserve, versus the previous generations, including me being one of those, being brought up to just work hard and hustle and hope that someone will notice us and be just endlessly grateful for anything on top of the basics. The younger generations, they just ask for things. They're vocal about their demands and needs. And in my opinion, it's a good thing.
So often, Lukáš, I will come to you in a minute. So often I talk to the managers and they tell me this exactly. They're very vocal about their mental health. They're not worried about calling in a sick day because they don't feel that they're like mentally stable that day. But at the same time, you think, how could the managers from older generations deal with that? Because so often they're struggling with understanding that, with the openness, with the vulnerability that's coming in their way.
Naturally, this is an issue. It's a struggle, and it requires a lot of patience from managers and the will to invest in their younger team members. They simply need to act again as mentors, and also educate the younger team members on what is an appropriate way to ask for things. Because I think the issue is not the team members asking for something or being vocal about their needs. Very often the issue is just the communication style. And that's a problem as old as humanity, I think. The communication style and different perception expectations between the older generation and the younger generation. So there is increased demand on the manager's side to be patient and to act as mentor. But what I definitely wouldn't recommend is ignoring those asks or requests or acting as if the request itself was inappropriate. Mm-hmm. Because it's actually, as a manager, you're being given a gift because you don't have to search and guess what the issue may be. The person actually is telling you.
Mm-hmm. I love it that you're saying it, because when I was looking into some data in Gen Z and Gen Y, they are obsessed with feedback and they are not afraid giving you feedback, but they're not afraid of receiving feedback. So I think that can be a really fast two-way communication, how to get everybody better. So love it. Yeah. Lukáši, in your research, have you seen any difference between younger generations and older generations in the workplace and how they approach the therapy?
We did not ask, but I can tell you my personal experience as a leader. I really think that what Petra said is true. What I see more is that younger people are more willing to adapt new benefits and adapt technological benefits like mood tracking or online psychotherapy. So they think and they talk about their feelings and they are more willing to solve them through new benefit system from my point of view.
Mm-hmm. When you talked about the companies who are actually adapting Hedepy, you mentioned there are companies where 40% of the employees are taking the therapy sessions. Mm-hmm. What kind of companies are they? Those mm-hmm. where the employees are very active.
I think it has like two parts. The first one, companies who are more innovative, like product companies who were startups and now they are global. They have headquarters in western part of the world and it's pretty normal there to visit psychotherapy. The second part are companies where you have a lots of stress, like accounting or lawyers, marketing agencies, where you have to handle lots of problems with people because this is stressful. Talking with people and solving the problems, adapt, is stressful. This is where people are willing to visit psychotherapy online.
Mm-hmm. Petra, you take care of well-being in Red Hat. That's obviously not therapy only. Could you talk more about what are the general well-being strategies in companies?
Yeah, so that's the $1 million question. And we could extend our discussion for 2 days and still wouldn't be done with it. But exactly as you say, Pavlina, it is a very complex task, and you have to have a holistic approach if you want to tackle well-being in your organization, which means it's important to take into consideration not just all kinds of well-being, because there is not just one well-being. You have mental/emotional, you have physical, you have financial, you have social, and the theories differ. So someone will give you 5, someone will give you 8. But generally, there are all sorts of well-being. But also you need to take into consideration the demographics of your workforce, of your population, because well-being means different things for people at different stages of their lives. And this is something where I think companies sometimes fail. There is, what I've seen in the past years as a trend, is a lot of focus on parents, on young parents, new parents, which is fantastic. I'm all for supporting families. What about those who are past their productive life in terms of producing babies? Here we are. What about those? And I will say some words that we're not used to hearing in a business environment. But what about women experiencing menopause? Mm-hmm. That is a major event in life, which indeed is influencing you at work. And we could name a long list of other life stages that require attention, where you as an employer can do some good and can differentiate yourself from the vast amount of opportunities that are out there. So also generally we all know that at least in Western civilization, overall we're aging. And that applies to work, to businesses too. We at Red Hat, we have employees who have been with Red Hat for 20, 25 years. These people deserve to be looked after, and parental leave is not going to do it. So I'm not giving a very specific answer because it's impossible within the time frame, but I would say the key word here is holistic and attentive to different life stages. That's what you need to focus on when building your well-being strategy.
I love it so much, the fact that you actually, and again coming to my marketing background, you have different target groups and you have different messaging towards them, you have different benefits. So it's not one meal voucher fits all, but it's basically like kind of drafting it for every person.
Hopefully not for every person, but definitely you really should cover all groups one way or another. At least be aware of their needs and make sure that the company has a solution for them.
Do you employ different strategies when it comes to monitoring their needs, when it comes to different target groups?
There are always the big listening strategies, as in surveys, which are very important for any company. It really gives you a sense of the shape of the organization. But also individuals, I have to say, we have about over 20,000 employees today, and recently we conducted this all-embracing company survey. Over 17,000 people actually gave written open text feedback. See, not just ticking boxes, but actually expressing something in written, taking that action. And we had a team, I'm part of the team, reading every single one of them. Wow. So we don't miss anything. But I would anyway go back to managers. There's absolutely no way a company, from global perspective, is able to track the needs and the situation of every single employee. That is the manager's job. And if the manager is missing on these, doesn't have that level of trust with their team members, they're simply not doing a good job.
I feel there's a red thread kind of running through our conversation, and that is like people are willing to give you feedback. People are willing to share with you their needs. You just need to listen. And so often companies choose to ignore that.
One of the key trainings, we have a set of trainings that are mandatory for every new manager at Red Hat, whether they were promoted to manager or hired as managers. It's called M-Series. And that is a lineup of trainings that you are expected to go through as a new manager at Red Hat. One of the key ones that I would recommend to every company to adopt is giving and receiving feedback. To me, that's just the basics, but not only for managers. We have one that is giving and receiving feedback for managers and one that is giving and receiving feedback for associates, which is employees at Red Hat. So it is important to learn to give and receive feedback in a constructive way.
Thank you. Lukáš, you talk a lot with HR managers, and I think you have a really good insight what they are adopting as well-being strategies in their companies, apart from only introducing psychotherapy. What do you see as the biggest trends?
I think that Petra actually said it. It's a freedom. It's a freedom and how to work with the time of the employees, because nowadays everybody would like to be flexible and decide what they can do, what they can't do. Simply give them more responsibility and freedom. Companies starting to give them 4 days working week or 3 days working week actually, and the next 2 days, like in Google, you can work on your project or you can educate yourself. I think this is a big part of well-being, to give people time and let them decide what they want to do in your company. Maybe they will create something great for you, or maybe they will work on themselves.
Mm-hmm. I think, and Petra addressed this in last one when she said when people are burned out, they are not investing in themselves, they are not growing, they are not educating themselves. So, and this is exactly what you're pointing in this question, in this answer.
Yes, I think the time, giving people time to take care of themselves is one of the important learning from this discussion. The second thing is what maybe Petra said as well, I'm addressing you always, is to teach leaders and other people in the company how to adapt this topic and how to talk with others about psychotherapy. Because of HR, sometimes it's a department which focuses to many different target groups, but the leader actually really knows how people feel or should know. So we have to teach leaders how to offer their people in a good way. It's really hard actually, psychotherapy or help, and to recognize when it's needed and when it's not, because as you said, juniors or other people, they express themselves, emotional, lots of things, but it doesn't mean that they need psychotherapy always. So we have to teach them ourselves how to do it in a good way.
In my opinion, everybody needs psychotherapy, but I think I'm saying it because I've been to Tinder, and that kind of gets us there. But anyway.
That's a different story.
Yeah, that's the relationships. You both talk a lot about designing the space in your workday for the therapy. And it's a question for both of you. What strategies do you see as good ones in the companies? Because we talk about the importance of creating it, but are there any we have Fridays off, or we have 20% of the time you can invest in well-being, or are there any actual steps you've seen?
So again, if I may,
yes.
there would be a list. I personally have no meetings Friday in my calendar. Works miracles. No one dares to schedule across that. So it's worth trying if your job allows it. But generally speaking, one thing that we did back then at Google, and that I think was a real game changer while being the simplest of things, and it was a back then response to people actually starting to talk about feeling burned out across the board. Google operates based on OKRs, objectives and key results, that typically are related to your job, to performing your job. You set up your objectives, you set up the key results that you commit to delivering. To battle potential burnout and lack of energy, it was introduced to add to your OKRs something called one little thing or one small thing. And it was everybody's responsibility to name what it is that they would like to include in their work, in their day, that will help them regain that energy, recharge and feel inspired and energetic again. And it could be a very individual thing. Then you would discuss this proposal with your manager, and if it was feasible within your team and your work line, you were sort of not allowed, you were held responsible for actually doing it. So people would, for example, say, I need every Friday to finish at 3 to be able to accompany my child to ballet. Or someone would say, once a month I need Friday off to take my painting class. Very, very different things, but it was always one little thing that was allowing the person to just have some freedom to do something that fulfills them. And then next year round, the same survey, and we jumped up double digits when it came to burnout and feeling uninspired. So this is a small tip that I can offer companies to try. And again, people will not misuse it. I think we really need to shift our mindset as companies, as designers of organizations, to trusting first. And only if your trust is failed, then of course make some steps. But majority of your employees will not misuse this generous offering.
I love that you're saying it, because whenever I tell somebody that my employees have unlimited holidays or home office anytime or anything, they're like, how do you control them? How do you check on them? It's kind of like, because I chose them, because they're great people, because, yeah, exactly. Lukáši.
I think in the companies, and we are living that in Hedepy, we have to focus on individuality of each employee. So let people design their working day. Let people design how they are going to do the goals, what they are going to do for that. We are running OKRs in Hedepy, so I can really understand how it helps us to give them like a key result and let them how they are going to achieve it. And really what helps us is like full remote. I know that it's not applicable to each of the company, especially to huge companies. But if we give people a chance to decide if they want to work at a space, at the island in New York or in Prague, but just finish their job, it will really help them to take care of their babies, their lives, go to the doctor and feel less stress because they know how to do it. We choose them, as you said. So I think more individuality, it's great.
I'm glad you're mentioning this, Lukáš, because this has been on my mind. So the pandemic, of course, was horrific and tragic on so many levels. But if there's one good thing that it brought us, and there's more than one in my opinion, it is that many companies discovered that they don't need people on site to get great results from them. For many companies, this was the no-go. I've experienced it so many times. And even big, progressive, modern companies were still reluctant. After being forced into a remote model, they realized that actually the productivity went up.
It's much better, right?
It is much higher. And there are so many companies who are now offering the hybrid model, where they offer employees to choose what works for them best. And the majority of employees will be in the hybrid, meaning you can be in the office, but you don't have to, and you have all the freedom to decide what day you want to take to come to your office.
I think it's not like a totally positive. We have to think about the threats of remote and everything. So we have to learn as an organization how to do meetings, how to do it in different time zones, and so on. So it's not so like black and white, but as Petra said, the productivity is much better and people feel much better in the company. That's the result, actually.
Well, one of my favorite jokes says that who's the chief innovation officer in all companies? And the answer is COVID. And it's never the CDO. And during so many years I have heard companies like, oh, we can't implement Google Meets, oh, we can't implement Slack, and then suddenly within 2 weeks everybody was on that.
Maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming back to the mental health, I think you both addressed it during your talks, and it's about it's a taboo, especially we are in Central Eastern Europe. It's kind of still a debate if to confess that you go to therapy, if to confess that your employees actually need it, and so on. How do you battle those stigma?
I think we talked about it today. The best is lead by example. If leaders and senior colleagues will express their feeling about the crisis, how they really feel inside, and what they are doing for it, people will follow, because you will normalize it. People will think that it's something usual which we do, especially when you onboard people and they see that it's something normal in the culture of the company, they start to do it normally. So I think that's the easiest and the fastest thing. You have to have right leaders and you have to teach them how to express themselves authentically.
Mm-hmm. For me, maybe it's connected to also personal, because it's not about going to the therapy and recognizing it as a benefit for my company, but also talking to my friends about the fact that I go there. And I think we so often forget that the personal and work life, they kind of intersect, they influence each other. And you said it, number one is relationships in Hedepy.
Because we live with everybody.
And by the way, this is how Lukáš mentioned employer branding earlier. This is the word of mouth is the best branding campaign for an employer. So if two friends are chatting and one shares that they used or benefited from this service provided by the company, and the other one thinks, this would be really helpful for me, but my company is not providing it, then you already see the differentiation in how much employers care for their employees' health.
That's true. Gossip in the kitchen is the best campaign that you can do, actually promoting that as a healthcare benefit. I see that we have Tomas coming, so that's a great one. There's one question that arrived from the audience. While anonymity is great, what would you say to employees whose needs should be heard by the employees in case where their issues come from not being valued? So Lukáš, we talked a lot about the importance of anonymous therapy, but at the same time, maybe during the therapy, they talk about something that is really bad within the company. So how do we make this heard? How do we kind of connect this? On one side, the anonymity of the therapy session, and on the other side, something that should be heard by the HR.
I think it's really hard to do it, actually. But we called it mood tracking in the company. It's actually something pretty innovative in Central Europe, pretty standard in Western part of the world, because you can do really great survey and one-to-one with people every week or every month, every quarter, to understand if something bad is inside the company. To take it from the relationship with psychotherapist is impossible. We can't approach this relationship, so we don't know what people talk about inside there. Mm-hmm. We can ask them only through survey, one-to-one, and really try to be empathetic.
Mm-hmm. One last question for each of you, and that's the key takeaway from you during today's session. What's one thing that we might not have covered, but you think it should be mentioned during the discussion, or something that you would like to highlight from something that you have said before? Petra.
That's a tough one. Picking just one.
Two.
I would.
We are friends, so you have two.
So one that should be the main takeaway is when implementing or wanting to implement well-being strategy, really build advocates for it within your company leadership. That's the key success factor. That's going to help you succeed with whatever you bring on board, including potential the therapy for this. So that's the one out of my presentation. One that we haven't mentioned, but actually the comment I see reminded me of it. That is going back to the demographics of your workforce and how it is important to look at the needs of your people holistically. It's really important for those professionals who are looking after the employees and building those strategies to consider that they are human beings too. And what always helped me in all of my roles was putting myself in the shoes of those that I'm looking after, and also consider myself as one of those who will be consuming the outcome of these efforts. Basically humanize. We're talking about strategies. That's all very technical, but we're talking about human beings here and addressing their needs. So have this in mind when building those strategies.
I love it because so often, for example, in marketing, we look at people as users, but we shouldn't forget they're people, and it's the same. Lukáši.
It's really a tough one, but I have 30 seconds to think about this. To summarize it, I just think that 59% of the whole population face some mental problem. It couldn't be a big thing. It could be relationship, stress, or burnout. That's a big thing. So your people, it doesn't need to be psychotherapy, but your people need to know that you take care of them. That's really important, and you have to somehow show them that it's really important to take care. So that's it, simply. Just take care of your people because they now need it. We have 2 years of crisis and they need you.
The World Health Organization actually estimates that we're losing $1 billion a year just because of the fact that we are not taking care of our people. And I think that's a horrible thing as a society, Thanks a lot for joining me for the discussion. You were truly awesome. Some of the people are mentioning that in Slido, so I'm happy about it. And last but not least, we have Tomas Sebek coming up. If there's one guy my mother is in love with, it's definitely him. And I am not very much surprised because he built something that is really worth telling a story. And I'm very excited to have him on stage and talking about innovation and how he built, for example, uLékaře, and how we can really empower ourselves through medicine. So Tomáš, welcome. Tomáši, how are you today?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing fine. Hope that you can see me and hear me.
Yes, perfectly. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, guys. So my role at the end is just to talk about a couple of innovations. Maybe may I ask somebody in the studio just turn off the voice because I hear myself twice, if it's working. So my part, next 25 minutes is just to tell you something about innovations in general, because I'm a big fan of any medical innovations. Also to tell you something why we are here on the market in Czech Republic. And finally, I will tell you a bit the story of our uLékaře.cz. Because I'm surgeon, so I do this with my hands, with a knife, in the OT, cutting people. Only technology I have usually beside me or with me is We turned from open surgery to the laparoscopic surgery. It's a fancy thing, but for me, it's not enough if I'm talking about the future of medicine, because I think that it's going to be more digital, more patient-oriented. I'm a big fan also how to make medical care more mobile. That means people are not going to the doctor in the hospital, but rather the hospital is going with the doctor to your homes. So, first part, I took a couple of slides from somebody I admire a lot. It's a guy who is calling himself the medical futurist. And here you see chiefly three colors. Green is what is based already on place in the care in the terms of healthcare professionals and patients usage. That means you can imagine augmented reality, virtual dissection for medical students, etc. Then there is something yellow, which I call it's going to be here probably tomorrow. Artificial intelligence for recognizing, for example, X-rays, robotic nurse beside your bed once you are in the hospital. The red color means what will be after tomorrow. And for me, for example, because I'm a big fan of teleportation, I hope that I'm first in the planet teleported somewhere. And it's probably not going to be to move my body from one place to the other place, but move my mind to different places, cloud, computer, mouse, or myself, but after 1,000 years. So this is how medical innovation goes in time, and what we are expecting, basically everything we thinking of today, it's going to be on a place, and only question in the medicine, same like automotive or banking, will be the ethic part, not the technology, because we as a humans, we can do anything, but it's going to be ethical questions. When I'm talking to my colleagues about, for example, artificial intelligence in the medicine, here in Czech Republic, we have a quite conservative community of people, medical healthcare professionals. They don't believe so much that artificial intelligence can help us. So this slide is about FDA, American Agency for Food and Drug, which already confirm dozen of project in cardiology, pathology, neurology, where AI is already placed. It's not to tell you all the details on the slide, but it's just to say that technology, digitalization, artificial intelligence, machine learning is already here with us. As you may see, this is a typical cycle of innovations. For first moment, you see the hype. Everybody keen on to choose anything else. It's the same if you're into new medication or new device. So in regards of technology, it's almost the same curve. Then basically you do some fuck ups, some fails, and finally there is a adaptation of kind of technology. As you may see, for example, most dots on the right is a virtual reality in the pain management, and then nearby that it's mental health applications, personalized medicine, medical health record, and it's already on the place thanks to Hedepy or uLékaře.cz, their global applications. Because I always would love to try something on myself. You may see that I have 2 watches. I have a lot of things on my chest. I'm not going to show in my. This was one example I tried to show. It was application developed in the US, small kind of box you can put in your bra if you're a woman, or in your pants if you're man. and then you can really precisely measure several physiological functions of the human, and just to see the trends and make interpretation really a possible disease, or to work with the user in the terms of prevention. The second thing I'm really keen on is Czech applications, call it MySASI, but it's a global project today. It's working with the heart rate variability, very precise, originally designed for people who do professional level of sport. Now for the wide public, connection of application by your mobile phone and with HR belt. Not going to the details, just tell you that it's not always about the software, but also possible hardware. But still, me personally, I'm mostly a fan of anything which is based on software. This is one of the best thing I ever tried. Binach AI, it's an Israeli application. Just looking on the screen of your mobile phone for 60 seconds, you can measure your heart rate. It's not such surprising for me, but oxygen saturation, and in the future, blood pressure or level of your alcohol in the blood, in your blood, for me, it's a kind of miracle, but it's working. So for me, for example, this application is far away in all the peloton of the others who do kind of inventive work in the field of medical innovations. This was our idea a couple of years ago when we thought about how to replace physical primary care by kind of box where you will have some hardware devices such as a thermometer, blood pressure, or other things, and basically just to help people to approach the medical care, mostly primary, to show or to send GP, which is total remote, physical signals or physiological signals from your body, just to precise his diagnostic and possible treatment. So imagine that you are going to kind of telephone box, sitting just using a couple of devices connected to your body, talking to your doctor through the screen. And after 20 minutes, you have a real medical consultation. You can compare totally with a physical examination with your doctor, but your doctor is 100 miles from you. Because I'm also kind involved in a humanitarian medical aid. We are using a lot of things. For example, drones. In Africa, we can deliver blood units, we can deliver medications, vaccines, whatever. The only thing you have to explain local people to do not shoot on our drones because they are not military devices, but medical devices. Just to tell you or show you that sometimes the innovations, they are running so quickly in the part of the world you not expect in this moment, for example, Africa. And finally, this part, just to tell you, for us, the biggest we admire in our field of telemedical consultation, it's a CRI from Sweden with hundreds or thousands of users now placed in several, not only European countries, but if we are talking about the others, you see the map of Europe. There are several players in the field. So we, as a company from Czech, partially from Slovak Republic, are quite small, but in the terms of delivery quality and a similar service, we are in the same pool of today we are talking about mental health. I just used some screen from one website. You can see not only the names of probably the biggest global companies and services, but also on that field. For your imagination, in 2020, I think it was $1 trillion US invested into the telemedicine at all. Because I started this part about that we as a humans can do anything in the terms of technology or technical solution. I think that, as I said, all the questions in the future medicine will be just ethical. Would it be us as a Homo sapiens just continuing our story, or are we going to change ourselves to something as a Homo Deus? So maybe for you guys who don't read this book, I would recommend that there is a couple of answers for your intensive questions. The second part, I promised to speak something about why we are here. I mean, in the Czech market mostly. Hopefully, next months we will move a bit more towards Europe. What kind of solution we are offering to the system? People here, especially medical personnel, specialists, and also state itself and its agencies, they are talking so much in the terms of security, in the terms of regulations, and it's quite intensive. And for me, and basic user, it's not understandable at all. If I'm trying to explain what is a telemedicine, I'm saying, guys, imagine that you have some device in your pocket, usually a mobile phone. Imagine that there is a kind of application. I'm not sure if this already exists, but maybe some future or next time. You have a voice recognition, you have a kind of AI powered application, and you basically fart on your mobile phone. And because there is a very good application, it will call you in a millisecond, hey man, the voice from your buttock was a bit different comparing the healthy persons, because I compared 10,000 the other sounds. And this looks like you have a hemorrhoids. So please contact your proctologist, and just to help you, there is an appointment for one which is the nearest to you or to your location according to your GPS in the mobile phone. This is a future of telehealth. Doesn't matter if it's physical or psychological, mental health, whatever. It has to be quite easy. It has to be one click. It has to be oriented to the user. I used a couple of slides from a very interesting study of Deloitte, quite fresh, 2021, comparing 6 European countries, how far they are with digitalization and what kind of troubles they are facing off. Basically, it's not surprising for you that demand of care about the patient in the terms of physical or mental health is just growing up quite quickly. And on the other side, there's less manpower. That means less doctors, probably less facilities. We are getting older, in not only in Europe, but globally. And we have to change our mindset how to deal with the problem. And it's not about to more medical personnel on the place, but it's about digital medicine in the future. This is probably not much important, but all the things in a digitalization of medicine is about a cooperation. So several stakeholders has to cooperate, otherwise it's not going to be a good solution for the user. In Czech Republic, we are facing the same thing. That means there is a demand of care in next years, 2030. It's about almost approximate 20%. Growing up in all the districts of Czech Republic. And on the other side, you see the tsunami of age of our general practitioners. Basically, they are 65 today, and in 5 years, there will be nobody. Who will replace them? Because the medical students, they are not going too fast and not to have such interest to be general practitioner. So the only option is to use kind of digital approach. Something about Czech population, and again, the answer why we are here. We grew up 20 years of our age. It's we are doing kind of sports. In 40 years, we are not doing them so much, getting more fat, drinking alcohol. We are one of the first country in the world in the terms of consumption of alcohol. And then we are 60, 80, mentally, physically, and in 80, we are dying. There is a difference between us and, for example, countries on the north of Europe, because they have a much better quality of post-productive life than we have, approximately about 5 years difference. That means if we get up from work and getting retired, we have no power to travel, we have no eyes to read all the books, we have no time for our kids because we are just seeking for the medical care, and so on. And this has to be changed. This is just a couple of economics, just briefly. We pay less than average of Europe in the terms of health insurance, and having worse results in the comparing the rest of the Europe in the terms of treatment and prevention. Basically, overall, all the Europe is coming to be more healthy by prevention, and in Czech Republic we going more to pay. That means to spend more money to treat, and that's big difference, and something has to be changed also by digital medicine. Explaining that by numbers, more than 400 billion Czech crown is spent on the care, and just 2.5% is spent for prevention. So if you would love to deal with the aging in the future, and this probably pay for all the Europe, you have to be more focused on prevention and give people more time to spend good quality of life once they are retired, to not only spend instead of 80 years approximately today in Europe, 100 years, but not in pain, but in with a smile on your face. 3 very important and for me exciting models how to deal with the health. One is already expressed by 17 goals of United Nations SDGs. Chapter 3 is about the health. 5P or 4P about personalized, participatory, permanent, and predictive medicine. It's essential for us in uLékaře.cz because this is exactly what we would love to offer our clients in the terms of physical health. That means you monitored by something, several sensors you can have on your skin, on your body. Probably next time, 5-10 years, we will have small nanobots in our blood as a sensors. Some of them will be monitoring our brain activity. Some of them, they will be placed in the liver, and you will have a huge amount of data for to follow trends, for to offer the precise and personalized medical care. Of course, client has to participate. In Czech Republic, it's not today like we would love to have, because people or patients, they always think that doctor is God and can solve anything, and not many of them are thinking about that health is in their hands. And the third part or model of me, and I'm a big fan of that, is about do not economics and do not healthcare, which is part of that, because we are living in the planet and there's a limit of our sources. So put always the money into healthcare system according gross according unlimited money. It's not the way for all of us. It has to be somehow circular as we are thinking about the environment or climate change. This is just comparing about, if I'm explaining here in Czech Republic and willing myself to be understandable for public, we invest a lot to the car, and car is going to be today super technologically equipped. That means that you can do predictive maintenance. That means before your car crash or something is getting wrong, they will replace that, or they can replace that. So that means that you will never stop in the middle of night somewhere in the highway. The same thing you can do for the human body, but it's not story of today. We have to change mindset of Czech people, maybe European people at all, in the future. And that's our story. So basically, how we can help for people to be more healthy and to use or to be happy from retirement or from last part of life. We would love to rise up healthy life years about 5 years until 2030. So, how we can help in uLékaře.cz in the terms of some examples. We started our mission a couple of years ago, and basically it was just kind of Medi-Google, easy box for searching, and that was all a huge database of medical expressions, articles, labs, devices, whatever. That was a start of our story. Then we changed to the recent service, and maybe now it's time to give you one of the two polls I have prepared for you guys. Once we started to serve our service in the terms of distance medical care, what do you think was more surprised for not only B2C clients, but mostly for B2B clients? Basically, A was a capability, B capacity, C velocity, and D altogether. I will give you some time to respond for this first poll, and we'll continue 2 or 3 slides more and then be back. This is a kind of theoretical model, how we designed our service a couple of years ago. All the green things, they are completely digital, and the red part is how we are connected to the physical care. That means to the hospital, the OPDs, to the existing physical doctors. Too much to the details, but most important is going from the left, where you see a red patient with a kind of problem, to be on the right, finally, have a kind of satisfaction in the term mostly physical care, but also regarding mental health, and to having good user experience, which is something completely new in the system, such in Czech Republic. Health is yours. That's our claim for now, for the new campaign we started. Imagine what we do. I will show you next slide, just to let you know that we have a long experience here. More than now, it's 150,000 employees in more than 100 companies, starting from small 50 people to giants like 10,000, 36,000 company. One of this exists also covered by our service. And virtual hospital of us means 350, a bit more medical personnel in different specialization. If you are using our service, it's going from the step connection with a general practitioner 24/7 all the time, also for your children. Then there is a step 2. All of them, of course, they are distance, virtual. There is a specialist. Finally, if the specialist decided to be seen by doctor in the hospital, there is a step 3. It's a nurse and fully digitalized call center. And 4 is our partners all around the Czech Republic. Doesn't matter if it's private or university hospital. We try to deliver care as much quick as we can, and of course looking mostly on the quality of care. We started from these two pillars, I mean, online consultation and then appointment. But last year showed us post-COVID that the prevention is probably going to be the main part. We would love to keep people healthy until they die. So the prevention is for us probably final vision where we are driving our service uLékaře.cz in the future. Just to show you how it works, Jimmy 6 is going to the general practitioner and seen by specialist, then the nurse. It's just repeating what I already showed before. And there is also huge feedback coming to the beginning of all the process. 3 stories as an example. Your child is getting sick. You have no idea what's going on using uLékaře.cz by application or a computer, whatever you want to use. There is a small part of artificial intelligence, small chatbot on the beginning, just helping you even to the right specialist. Finally, there is at least satisfaction from the information. Sometimes we can deal all the problem just virtually with no need to be seen by a physical doctor. Most of the people, they come to us with the problem of misunderstanding the medical record, no explanation, no time in OPD of doctor. So we are here just to explain everything the right way to be understandable. The same thing is a second opinion. Just looking to the poll on my computer, and I don't see the results so much. I see that 50% altogether. Thank you guys. Exactly. Altogether, and it was quite surprising even for us how usable we are for the public and for the companies. Last story is just you have problem in the last moment somewhere outside. We serve our service for so many expats living here in the country, from US, from other places around the globe, but also we helping the people who are going outside for vacation, for the purpose of some job, and these are also our clients. Overall, and now we also our cooperation with the Hedepy. We try to be partner for mostly companies who are using our service in the time of COVID. We support a lot. Then by knowledge, especially all the time I'm mentioning that we are focused more on the physical health, but the mental health is a huge part of our service in cooperation with our partners. And finally, probably last 3 minutes for the presentation, just to tell you, this is a kind of model like an iceberg. Maybe you expect that most of the time regarding your employees is spent on absence when they are seeking for the doctors, waiting in waiting room. Everything is so long. That means if you are going to see your GP, you have to ask for all day off from the company. But the biggest problem is not absence, but is something called presentism. Looking the other side, you see the white of the problem, and you see also the money and time spending by companies on such a problem. To have somebody on the spot in the office or in the factory doesn't mean that the people or the men, women, they are effective because they are thinking about the medical problem. They are seeking for a medical doctor. They are not concentrated. And all the things I'm talking about is called presentism. And this is something we really helping to the companies with. And it's also something which is quite measurable. You may see this banana on the top of that. That's part of our marketing. Comparing these big bubbles, the banana small bubble means it's cheap. It's super cheap. The service we are offering to entire globe, our clients, is super cheap comparing the problem in the terms of money they are dealing with, presentism, absence, contacting doctor, and so on. This is just our winners, companies from banking, IT companies, but also big factories, for example, in Czech Republic, Škoda is our client, and so on. Part of our communication, we are trying to explain very briefly who we are, where you use us. It's link you, and if you would love to try it, and so far you living in Czech Republic, you can register. Hopefully, next couple of months we will be serving to other European countries. Thank you for your attendance. Maybe before we start the discussion, I will just realize the second poll I have prepared for you guys. So, when you thought about our product, we decided to be driven by, and first, to be connected to the healthcare system and its conservative part, such as medical doctors, then be connected to payers as an option to smoothly join the public insurance system. And C, we decided just to forget all of them and just to be focused our customers with no regards to the system and payers. Waiting for your answers and ready for discussion now. And thank you again. You joined my presentation.
Thank you very much, Tomas. I'm really, I made a lot of notes actually, listening to all the innovation when it comes to telemedicine. Actually, I want to ask a question that came from Slido, from one of our viewers, and that is, are people worried about telemedicine? Do they trust it as much as they trust the real doctor?
I would say yes. I cannot say anything else because it's my job and job of my colleagues. But it's true because we were here many years before COVID came to us, also in Czech Republic, and things start to change. And now we are about 750, 100,000 consultations in all of amount consultation we did in the past. So, and most of our clients, they are quite loyal, coming back once they would love to enter the health system. The starting point is uLékaře.cz. So we also educate a lot Czech population about how to use and that it's trustable and no worries about the security. We are not so much fans of regulations talking about cybersecurity. We have an ISO 27001, which is about, or maybe highest ISO norm of security at all. But we are not so much talking about it because all the people, they share even medical stories on Facebook, on the social network. So if they do that, no worries that you can abuse kind of data because everything about anybody is already known. But it's a kind of hyperbole from my side. I'm just saying that, yes, for our clients, for our people, for companies such as Deloitte, EY, PwC, you know, they have a really strict rules. If you would love to start kind of cooperation, we are trustable. And I think that the digital medical care is trustable, especially post-COVID time at all.
You had heard the hype cycle. When do you expect telemedicine to become part of the mass market? So my mom starts using it. Do you have any predictions on that?
I hope that it becomes in my life here in our country, because we are on the tail of other European countries. They are far away from us. There are several winners, such as Sweden, Denmark, and other, especially North European countries. But kind of prediction, I would say the time is changing. Health insurances houses, they start already kind of pilots. So I hope that it's going to be measurable part of healthcare system in next 2-3 years.
Wow,
I'm not saying that it's going to be majority, but there will be a couple of successful pilots, and that means entering point to the public healthcare insurance system.
That's really great. And I think it's a great incentive for companies to actually start implementing it, because they will need to implement it really soon. So it's better it's the prevention you talked about, like starting to work on that. I think we might have lost Tomas. Okay, I see him.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, great. I was so worried. One of the questions that came again, how long does it take to implement uLékaře in a new company? So, I'm completely taken aback. I'm in love. I want to start using it as a company. How long does it take?
Usually there is a part of negotiation which takes some time, because we have to explain all the service now, because we have a really good references. It's much quicker than on the beginning. And I hope that now we are quite trustable. That means negotiations are about 2-3 months, something like that. Implementation part is quite quick. It's about 2 to 4 weeks. We usually starting with an awareness campaign. It depends if it's mostly to the office people, then this could be digital. On the other hand, imagine factory such as Škoda Automotive. Some of the people, they have not even smartphones. So we are trying to approach a different way. Sometimes it's necessary to print something. Also, days, which is offline event specialists focused on eyes, on backs, on mental health, whatever, just to introduce our service. And then we try to follow up basically to the third pillar of our service, which is prevention. Because you are not too much ill all the time. That means most of the time you are healthy. But in regards of prevention, there is always basically daily based issue you can deal with our clients. And that's especially we are focused now in the last year.
I love the fact that it kind of becomes my coach, so it's not me popping to the doctor every time I'm sick, but it's kind of like coaching me with this prevention. And maybe even like kind of instead of taking time to come to my doctor, really dialing in and checking it, and maybe like catching some of the illnesses early enough to be treatable, for example.
Sure, true. We see ourselves mostly not as a virtual hospital. Of course, it's a majority of our job, but we are a logistic company. We have a good system here in the of care. Medical healthcare in Czech Republic is one of the best in the world.
Two questions, short ones that came from Slido. What medical issues are the most common? What people are seeking treatment for?
Basically 5 specialization and huge category of problems. Neurology, orthopedic, surgery, gynecology, and dermatology, they are our favorite. But then just connected to them, it's mental health and other things. Basically, we started to help the people with basically sickness, basic sickness, flu, whatever. Today, we are able to deal with oncological patients. We did heart transplantation, not virtually, but we started with the patient. On the beginning, it was uLékaře.cz. In one company, it was a L'Oreal. And the patient successfully finished with a artificial valve in her heart. So now a wide range of the service, mostly from physical, they are favorite for our users.
And the last question, and I think it's a perfect wrap-up, your wish for the future of well-being at work.
For me, it's a combination of many factors. I would love for our clients and for myself to be healthy, let's say to reach 90 or 100 years of my life without no pain, without no mental disorder, without no hip replacement, and things driven by mostly technology. I'm not so much fan to change my genetic code. I'm not going to chemicals, but for me, it's a technology, how I can reach this heaven. So this I would love to wish to everybody to very good understand what does it mean resilience, how to help to stay employee focused, how to deal with the medical care by technology to make it easy, to make it friendly, to make it basically customer oriented.
That's perfect. I loved your quote. We want to keep people healthy until they die. I think it's a wish for everybody around here watching us. And thank you, Tomáš, for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys, and stay healthy.
And this is a wrap-up for us. Thank you for watching Hedepy Talks. Those were our first ones and definitely not the last ones. I made a few notes that I think could be very much a wrap-up of this and an actionable steps. For me, what we started with was really understanding people we work with. Petra talked about, for example, the importance of one-on-one when you really feel the empathy towards your employee and you really show yourself. She talked about, for example, life cycles and how you really have to understand at what life cycle you are dealing with what. And I think understanding was the first part. Then we talked a lot about empathy. And when you understand somebody, how to show them empathy, how to craft the right message, how to really show that you are there for them, that you are listening to those feedback forms and that you're really taking care of it. And third one was those actionable steps, because if you understand, for example, your employees are on the verge of a breakdown or burnout, you really have to do something around it. So, for example, we talked a lot about the importance of designing space for therapy, not only introducing it to your well-being portfolio, but really giving employees time to do that. Or I really love that tip, making your well-being part of your KPIs. So those were, I think, kind of 3 steps that we covered. But for me, one of the most important things that we talked about today was the fact that well-being is not about mental health only. It's about a holistic view of our life, and work has become a crucial part of our life, but we have to take care of everything. And it's really taking care of our mind, taking care of our body, taking care of our loved ones. So we can be better and we can make this world a better place. I mean, yeah, that's the cliche, but I love it. And I think therapy is a crucial part of that well-being strategy. And I'm super happy to be part of this because I think for me, technology is a key driver to change in the world. And what Hedepy is doing, it's combining therapy, it's combining this human approach, this empathy, this a tool for listening and understanding each other with therapy, with technology, which allows us to scale it. So next time you meet somebody and they start talking about how maybe they don't feel fine at all, please open that, show your vulnerable side and lead them to the better path, because this is something we all deserve, to live in a place where we can be vulnerable, where we can be open, when we can be helped and when we can give help. And I think that's, for me, something that really resonated. So thanks a lot for watching us. Thanks a lot, Hub, for having us here in this wonderful space. It's such a good place to be. And thanks a lot for everyone for sending your questions. See you next time and give us feedback because that's important.